Welcome to Making the Most of WECA's online business tutorial. This is the Center Director's version of this tutorial, and so I do want to make sure that you're on the correct webinar. We did the Family Provider version yesterday evening. So, my name is Andrea Murray. I am the WECA Director of Conference and Training, and I am broadcasting out of our WECA Madison office. And with us is Angel Stoddard. Angel, I'm unmuting you right now. She's near Green Bay. If you can just say hello.
Hi, everybody.
Good. Thank you. Oops. So I first want to do a sound check. And so if you would please raise your hand. You should see this click the icon to raise your hand slide. Oh, no, you can't. Sorry. There we go. You should see this little dashboard on your screen, and you should see a little hand. If you see only this red arrow, that means that you have minimized your dashboard, and if you just click that, it will open it up. And so if everyone would just raise their hand right now, if they can hear me, and I just want to double check that that's the case. Oh, good. Okay, lots and lots of hands raised. Thank you very much. All right, I do want to make sure you understand that questions are welcomed at any time. It's my job to monitor your questions, and if I see a question that I think Angel should answer right away, I'll interrupt her and ask it for you. However, we've got 23 people logged in right now, which is a relatively manageable number. And so actually today we're going to try something out, which is if you do have a question, I'd like you to raise your hand. I will then see that and I will interrupt Angel, and then I'll unmute you, and hopefully if all works well, you'll be able to ask your question right directly to us. If that doesn't work for you, if you're on a machine that doesn't have a microphone, for instance, or you've got a lot of background noise that you don't want us to hear, then go ahead and just type your question into the chat box. Here's just a little bit about our agenda tonight. You might be wondering if you'll be able to watch this later on. We are currently recording, and I will try and get it posted to our website. I am having trouble, I will say, with last night's recording, and so I am not going to promise that we'll be able to post it, but I will do everything I can. You will receive registry credit if you'd like for your participation in the webinar, and more on that later. There'll be a training evaluation for you to complete at the end of the webinar. And if you're watching in a group, that's fine. But if you do want registry credit for everybody, you'll just need to be sure that every person that you're watching with completes a training evaluation. All right, here's our agenda. Angel's going to talk a little bit generally about why sound financial practices are important, and then we'll just go over the online tutorial, which some of you may have already looked at. We'll talk about budgets and record keeping and taxes, and then I have an opportunity to let you know about at the end of our training. So I'm going to turn it over to Angel Stoddard in just a minute. Angel's an instructor at UW-Milwaukee. And she does a lot of online training as well as in-person training, and she's the one that created the online tutorial that we will walk through this evening. So if you just give me a moment, I have to make some clicks and turn the controls over to Angel.
And you should see me now. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes, I can. People, if you want to raise your hand, if you can see the webcam of Angel's, that would help us. Yes, looks like people can see you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Well, welcome everybody. I'm really excited to do this. to kind of talk through this tutorial I created actually about a year ago now. What's interesting is I have been a center director for-profit, for nonprofit, Head Start, and although I was the center director, I always had somebody else whose job was to take care of the finances, and my role was always to take care of the staff and the children and the files, but I never had to actually deal with the budget just by chance. And so I never really got my hands into it, and there was good and bad for that, you know. I was watching a video yesterday, and the guy was talking about play and passion and purpose. And it got me thinking, although he was talking about innovation, it reminded me why I got into this, and why I'm guessing most of you have gotten into this field is because you love children. You love to play with them, you love to hang out with them, and not so much that you want to run a business. And yet here you are running a business, and you may or may not be real comfortable with the finance part of it. But what I'm sure all of you have learned, as I've learned, is the finances are a huge part of what we do. We all want to offer really high quality care, but how can you offer high quality care if you don't have any money coming in, right? It all costs money. If you want to buy some new equipment, or you want to buy, you know, come up with maybe your QUIP plan, your quality improvement plan, then that's going to cost some money for staff development, or you want to give all the teachers raises, whatever it is, all of that costs money. And oftentimes, I know what I was always told as a director is we don't have any money for that. We can't afford that. You'll have to do a fundraiser for that. And because I never got my hands into the budget, I really didn't know if that was true or not. Do we really not have any money? Because I saw the money coming in, but I never really saw how the money was being spent or where it was being spent. So it was interesting for me to be able to create this tutorial. It really taught me to learn to really look deeply at numbers and what they all mean. And over time, I've learned that I tell directors often that your budget tells a story about your program. And when I hear directors tell me that they don't ever see a budget, it's disappointing, because now I know that that budget is telling a story about who you are and what you do and what's important to your program, and yet you're the person who doesn't ever see the budget. So I created this tutorial, and I'm curious how many of you have had a chance to actually look at the tutorial, or maybe even spend a little time on it. So if you could just raise your hand in the chat thing saying, yeah, I've looked at it, that would be great.
I'm just seeing one hand.
Oh, all right. So most of you have not seen it.
3, 4. Oh, it always takes a minute.
Yep.
All right. Looks like about 4 people.
Okay. So most of you have not seen it. That's great. Then what I'm going to show you is brand new. So I'm going to minimize my screen, and you won't see me anymore, which is okay with me, and show you the tutorial. So this is what it looks like. I just have to do a little moving around of things on my screen. So this is what it looks like when you first log in. And ultimately, this is a website. So you will get a link from Andrea if you fill out the stuff, and she'll show you how to do that at the end. So you'll get a link from Andrea to bring you to this website, and then this website is going to help you create a budget, I hope. On this, when you first log in, this is the page you'll see, and I encourage you to start here. I know I'm the kind of person who always wants to jump ahead. It's easy to jump ahead, right? And just jump right into it. But I'm encouraging you to read through this stuff on this first page, which I have just a really short, you can see it's a 1.5 minute welcome. That's me a year ago. I have a video just talking a little bit about why finance is important to the success and the quality of your programs. And here's one other video, and then here's an article to read. And I want to show you this article to read when you click on download file. There's an article. It's interesting. Lots of people have made comments about this article saying it's a really good article. So I encourage you to read it. You can, as it's a PDF, so as you can see it just like on mine, you could print it if you wanted to. But what I really want you to note is, for those of you who are computer savvy, you'll note that Up here, 2 tabs are not open, just 1 tab. So what that means is this article did not open in a new window. It opened in the same window. So what that means is rather than Xing out of this, which will close everything, you just want to go back. And that's what will bring you back to where you were before. If I had hit the X, it would have all closed. Then I have a little bit of self-reflection here for you to think about prior to delving into all the numbers. Okay, so I encourage you to do this, read this first, this page first. And then you'll note I have 2 tabs. There's a Group Center tab and a Family Provider tab, all in the same place. You're all Group Center people, so we're going to look at the Group Center stuff. And I'm going to start with the line item budget, so I would just scroll down and click on line item budget. While I do that, I'm curious to do a poll. I'm curious how many of you actually do currently get your hands into a line item budget. Do you have that poll, Andrea?
I do. So yeah, it's just asking, are you currently using a line item budget? Yes or no? And votes are coming in. Interesting. So with 96% of you, 100% voted. Wow, what a great group. So
yeah,
this is interesting. So it's 52% yes and 48% no.
Okay. Yes, I would have been in the 48% in the 18 years I was a director. I would have been in the 48%, not because my center didn't have a budget, but because I never got my hands on it. I never got to see it. So yes, it's interesting and it is a reality out there. Now, administrators, they typically see it. Directors typically don't. I got another question for you before we jump in here. If you could type in the chat area, what are some, for those of you, the 52% of you, what are some of the categories you list on your line item budget? For example, do you have toys listed? Do you have consumable materials listed, cleaning supplies, that kind of thing? What are some of those line items in your budget? You could just type in the chat area.
Art supplies.
Mm-hmm.
USDA required food, tuition supplies and maintenance, room supplies, staff development.
So I think you'll see most of those are on our line item budget as well. So I clicked on the line item budget tab and it brought me here. And it'll bring you here. So there's some things to read about finances, and again I will say when you read through this too, you know, finances really are the foundation. They are the solid part of your program that keep your doors open every day. But the nice thing about what a budget can do, it can set the limits on your spending. I know for me personally, if I don't tell myself how much money I have to spend on shoes, that means I have as much money as I want to spend on shoes. But if I tell myself, Angel, you have $50 to spend on shoes, then, you know, if I have a little discipline, then I'll only spend $50. Were you going to jump in, Andrea?
Was I? No. Sorry,
okay.
I'm trying to type something else. We do have a question, though, since you've stopped.
Yeah.
So, Sheila, you've got your hand raised, so I'm going to unmute you, and if this doesn't work, then that's fine. You can type it in. But can you go ahead and ask your question? Sheila, are you there? Okay, well, never mind.
Okay.
We'll try later.
Yep, or she can type it in. So finances are the foundation of what you do. I do talk about a budget being realistic. Somebody asked that last night too, and I really encourage that the numbers you put into your budget are real. You know, let's not think pie in the sky here, not yet. What is your center, for example, is your center really 100% full 100% of the time? Odds are no. Odds are you have empty spaces once in a while, or you have a couple of part-time kids. So odds are you're not full all the time. So what I encourage when somebody creates a budget is that you use, I say 85%. I did find a website about children's programming and financing, and they say 85 to 95%. I typically go with 85% full, though, to capacity. So the biggest thing that I learned in creating this tutorial, which is odd to admit to, but that an operating budget or an annual budget is really a best guess. It is your best guess on what you think you're going to spend and how much money you think will be coming in for the following year or the following month, however you do it. I encourage doing it year by year. So a budget is your projection. It's what your best guess is. It's not the actual. So first let's look at some possible income and expenses. I created this tutorial for those of you who know me, and there are a few familiar names out there. I really like technology, so I created this fun little thing that you can look at to evaluate, you know, what are some of the line item budgets that I could use. So we'll start with income, and what are some places where money might come in. For a group center, the fees, obviously, the food program, if you do any fundraising, if you write grants, if you sell anything, if you sell, I had one center I worked at once that we sold our dinners. We got a restaurant license and parents could order food, for, you know, whatever was for lunch, they could order it from us and we would have it ready for them. So that was a sales thing we did. But maybe you sell t-shirts. Other income, and possibly if you collect money for field trips, but there are probably some other things here that bring in money. One I didn't list here would be any kind of fees. Do you charge a registration fee? Do you charge a supply fee? So those would be considered income as well. On here, if I go back to the home, and if we just look at fixed expenses, now your fixed expenses, if you think of the word fixed, that means it's not moving, right? So fixed expenses are the things that are the same every single month, from month to month. Now here are some of the things. Your occupancy costs, meaning your mortgage or your rent. That doesn't change every month. Just because whether you have 5 kids in your building or 50 kids in your building, the rent stays the same, right? Same with utilities. That might be true for maintenance. Any administrative salaries, if you're on a salary or you have staff who are on salary, that doesn't change from month to month. Your vehicle cost, advertising and marketing, if you set a certain amount, if you say I'm going to spend $100 every month on advertising, then that's a fixed cost. Professional fees are like lawyers or accountants, your tax preparer, those kind of people. Office expenses, now they may or may not be fixed, but if say you're renting a big copy machine, then that monthly rental fee is the same each month. Your insurance is the same. You may have other fees that are the same every month. For example, if you have a subscription to something, even if you're a WECA member, although that's not a monthly fee, it's the same every year. Your taxes, I would argue your income taxes are not a fixed, but they end up falling in here. And so we can go back home and this time look at variable expenses. Now these are those expenses that change from month to month. Now you could probably think for yourself a couple of expenses that, yep, it's different every month depending on how many kids you have in the building at any given time. So the obvious one would be food, right? Your food is different every month depending on the number of children and depending on the food you purchased that month. If you're on a rotating menu, your monthly food bill might stay similar. If you're not on a rotating menu and you just make it up every month, then that budget could really fluctuate from month to month. Also, I know when I was a group center, summer times our food budget went through the roof because we always took like 50 school agers So that can fluctuate. So here are some other things that fluctuate during the month. Any bad debt expenses, people who owe you money, that is. Your food costs, field trip expenses. Some months you go on field trips, some months you don't go on field trips. Sometimes we charged the parents for field trips, and other times we didn't charge the parents for field trips. Any program equipment and supplies, any supplies you're buying. I always think of consumables, so the crayons and markers and copy paper, that kind, or not copy paper, construction paper, that kind of stuff. That changes every month. Employment expenses, those are your salaries. You know those change every month. Training costs, if you send your staff out to a training, you know again that can change from month to month, how much that is. Benefits, taxes, this should say director salaries. If they are not salaried, if you as a director are hourly, then that changes. Okay, and that brings us back home. So those are possible income line items, fixed expense line items, and variable expense line items. And so I'm going to go back to the tutorial. Again, you'll note there's not two tabs open, so I'll go back. And here we are. For those of you who prefer to see this as a list, I absolutely understand. So I do have this in here. I have to save it to open it. I do have the possible income, fixed expenses, and variable expenses listed out. Now you can decide, which ones of these you want to use. As far as Youngstar goes, Youngstar does require that you have a budget, a line item budget created for each year, but they don't say how many categories you need to have. So you can decide which things you want to track. If you really have no budget at all currently, I would not encourage you to try to track all of this that's listed on this. I'm going to scroll back to the top. On this document, I would encourage you to pick a few to start with, and then you can always add more later. You'll figure out what it is you want to track. If you're curious, how much do I spend in advertising, or how much do I spend in office expenses, then track those. But you don't have to track all of this, especially in the beginning. So this document is here. You just download it and save it to your computer. These are the directions on how to use that link. That's right here. And then I have a line item budget, and I'm just going to skip and show you the actual budget. Here are some directions. If you don't remember later how do I open all this and stuff about this, this walks you through it. But I'm going to skip all the way to the bottom, and I'm just going to open up the line item template that I have in here. So again, what you will do is you'll just download the file. I encourage you to save as, save it to your desktop. You can name it something else if you want, and then open it. And then, for those of you who know, you need to enable the editing so you can type in it. Otherwise, it's not going to let you type in it. So here's my line item budget template that I have available for you with quite a few line items in here. Now you can add, delete, take out, whatever you want in here. On the bottom you'll see this is an Excel spreadsheet with two tabs. So one is a sample annual budget, and basically this is just giving you directions on how to fill it out in case you forget. The annual budget is an actual template that you can fill out. So what I did here is I created this. For those of you who are familiar with Excel, great, and those of you who are not, you're going to love this. So what you can do is you can type in these. It won't let you type in over here because it's locked, but you can type in here a dollar amount. So let's just say $50,000 will come in for tuition in say 2014. And let's say you get $2,300 in fees and $12,000 in food program. This is the food program. So what you'll see is this is adding up for you. You don't have to add this up. It's automatically adding for you. And you can't type in here and change anything because I have it locked. So then you'll say, well, how much do I spend in salaries? Let's say $23,000 in salaries, and on and on. And what you'll see down here, see it's adding up. just this stuff in the pink. Oh, excuse me. It's going to add up just the stuff in the pink. So I can add 100 and 200 or whatever. Okay, so you'll put in numbers here. And now the fixed expenses, so maybe your rent is $1,500, and I'm just adding some numbers so you can see right here it's adding up. And then what it's doing here at the very net profit and loss for this one column, it's taking your total income and it's subtracting the variable expense amount and the fixed expense amount for a final amount of $34,000. Wouldn't that be awesome? So that's how you fill this out. What I did is I did year 1 and year 2 for you. You could put 2014, 2015, however you want to do it. And then I put a square over here if you want to just keep notes about why the difference. You know, so maybe this year you're projecting, remember, you're projecting income to be, or tuition to be $50,000. Maybe over here you're going to project it to be $59,000 because you're adding 10 slots to your program. You're opening up another classroom or something. So you just add a note over here that's why the difference. Okay, so here's the line item budget. I'm going to stop talking for a minute and ask if there are any questions out there.
I don't see
no questions.
I don't see any hands raised, so feel free to type something in or raise your hand if you have something.
I'm hoping what that means is this sounds simple. Again, as far as the line items, you pick which ones are important to you, which ones you want to track. There may be some here that, yep, I'm going to do that, and others you can just delete out, say, nope, I don't like that one. So then just delete it. Okay, then I'm going to close this. On the rest of that page, now remember I'm on the line item tab. What I have at the bottom then are some questions for you to think about. And then I outlined here for you what Youngstar is requiring as far as a line item budget. What I can tell you is they do require an ongoing annual, meaning yearly, line item budget for 3, 4, and 5-star programs. We didn't ask at the beginning, Andrea, about number of stars. Can we do that still, or is it too late?
Nope, let's do that.
So Andrea's putting up a poll asking what star, how many stars for Youngstar is your program currently?
So yeah, we've got 2-star, 3, 4, or 5. We're not sure, not participating, or of course some of you might not yet be rated.
Awesome. So a little bit of everything.
So let's see, 20. So it's 43% 3-star, 22% 2-star, 13% 4 and 5-star each. Here, I will share this with you. And then 9% not sure, not rated.
Okay. That's wonderful that we have a little bit of everybody here across the board. It's nice to hear that those 4 and 5-star centers recognize that they still have things to learn, right? I mean, we all can recognize there's still always more to learn and more to understand about things. So welcome to this. The tutorial really is kind of geared for those who are 2 and 3-star, but I welcome the 4 and 5 stars. And if along the way you have suggestions to share about something you found that worked well for you, please type it in the chat box. We're a collaborative community here where we help each other out. So I'm welcome those comments.
And Angel,
all right, so we
do just have one comment from somebody who's from Illinois. That's interesting. And so she's rated a 3-star with the QRS. And imagine it's different.
From Illinois, yeah. Yeah, I don't know what how their things are laid out, but you know, that's awesome, because really this budget this tutorial I created will work for any program anywhere in the country. It's not specific to Wisconsin, so welcome Illinois. I'm going to go back, so Group Center, we've done the line item budget. Now I'm moving on to the record keeping practices. This is one I think, although budgets are hard, the record keeping, although I can be organized if I need to be organized. I know how to be organized. But what I found is there's never enough time to be organized. So the piles just keep growing. I wonder how many of you raise your hand if that's true for you too, where it seems like the pile just grows. You can raise your hand in the raise your hand area.
I'm raising my hand too. So it looks like lots of raised hands, at least way more than half.
Or not great. I was from the Pile It Up. I used to have those nice little, I don't know, plastic racks where you would put, I'd have one was called, to be filed pile. So I had a pile of stuff that needed to be filed. And that pile just grew and grew all the time. And then it got so big I didn't feel like tackling it. And then I'd often delegate that out to a staff member. Can you go file all this for me? What I found over time is some of the stuff in there was confidential, and I shouldn't have been having a staff member do that. So what I've learned now, and I really am no longer a piler, I have overcome that. What I do now is I have the philosophy of touch it once. So touch it once. Whenever a piece of paper is in your hand, in your mind, think, I'm only going to touch this once, so where does it belong? And if it belongs in a child's file or a staff's file, or it belongs in with your receipts, put it there. Instead of putting it in a pile, put it where it belongs so you only have to touch it once. So I encourage you to try that, see how that works for you. That's my theory. So for record keeping, Youngstar does ask that you keep track of your records, keep track of the paperwork as it relates to budgeting and finances. So that's what we're going to focus on here. I do have this is a PowerPoint for you you can just walk yourself through it on here on record keeping, and some tips and strategies on record keeping is in there. I'm making an assumption that all of you have a drawer that looks similar to this, maybe messier than this. This one looks empty, doesn't it? All those files look empty. But that you have a file folder system. What this one does, back to budget, this one is breaking out what the person spent in June, July, or the first week of June, the second week of June, third and fourth week of June, and then would just put receipts in there. I don't organize myself that way. I have found that doesn't work well for me. So I always had folders, but the file system works well. But something like this one, so you could have a tab that says receipts for food, receipts for utilities, receipts for whatever your line items are. So whenever a receipt comes in, you just stick it right in there in the appropriate file. So at the end of the year, you have them all together. And again, if you go with the touch it once, as soon as the receipt comes in, stick it in there and into the right one, and then there it is, and you never have to touch it again. So that's my suggestion for tracking that kind of stuff, keeping track of receipts. As far as tracking income and expenses, I have another document I created for you that does track the income and the expenses. Now what I have listed here are exactly what's on the budget, and then what I put here, so you would transfer from the budget sheet that we did in the other tab, transfer those dollar amounts in here. So for 2014, how much tuition did you think you were going to have? How much did you think was coming in for fees? So just transfer all those dollar numbers into this column, okay? And then during the year, at the end of each month, write down in this one, so how much actually came in for tuition in January. And I always did it on the last day of the month. I actually even have it in my calendar on June 30th, yesterday, to sit down and track expenses, or income and expenses. So, and I got good enough at it where it only really took me about a half an hour to fill this out on the 30th of each month. Or you could do it on the 1st of the month for the previous month. But if you put it in your calendar, you're more likely to do it on the day it's supposed to be done. So for each month, track this, and this, I want to open up the actual document. Again, this is one you'll need to download and save. And again, I have a sample tracking income, I&E, income and expenses, and an actual one that you can work on if you enable the editing. So if we, I think we said, I don't remember, $85,000 for tuition. And each month, this is how much came in the first month, this came in the second month. I'm just making numbers up, so don't laugh at my numbers. We had a big jump in enrollment in March. You can see over here it's adding up. It's adding the January numbers up. So ultimately the goal in the end would be that this year-to-date number matches the budgeted number, so that what you thought was coming in is what actually came in. So then I have the same thing for variable expenses and fixed expenses. And then in the end, I do have, it's adding up here and it's adding up here, so that in the end these two numbers should match. Okay, any questions about the income? This, now again, this is actual income and expenses. What's actually happening, not what you thought was going to happen. Again, it's an Excel spreadsheet, so the beauty of it is I did put in formulas, so it'll add up for you. Don't say those. Okay, I'm not hearing questions, so I'm going to keep going. The other thing that Youngstar is requesting you to do is track your meals and snacks. Now, as a group center, I am going to make an assumption that you already track in some fashion your meals and snacks because it's required of you. What I did here, just in case, if you're a smaller center or maybe you try to track it but you don't have a really good document to track it, I did create this document right here, and I'm going to open it for you. I did create this document as a meal tracker. If you don't have a really good one, you can just write one for each classroom and then one for each week. So you write the children's name, their date of birth, and then this is breakfast, morning snack, lunch, afternoon snack, dinner, and evening snack. I do have that coded down here. And you could just put an X or a check mark in there if Johnny had breakfast, Johnny had lunch, Johnny had snack. Easy enough for the teachers to do. Again, if you have a system, you have some form or some document that you're currently using and it's working for you, stick with what you have. But if you don't have something, or you have something but it's not working well, you might want to consider trying this one. Again, it's an Excel spreadsheet. It's something you can just save onto your computer and print it out quite easily from this tutorial. And this did it again. There we go. At the end of this tab, do you see that black on there?
I think it has something to do with the go-to meeting. It's just not quite catching up to itself. So.
Okay. So I have questions, again, questions for you to consider and ask yourself. And then what is it that Youngstar requires as far as record keeping goes? What do they want you to track? And they want you to, this is for meal stuff that they want you to track. They want you to track income and expenses.
I do have a question here.
Okay.
So is there a contingency fund? She's not sure if that's the correct title. There, so this is from Sheila from Illinois. Yeah, so their QRIS wants to make sure there's money allocated for surprise expenses. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. So an emergency fund or a rainy day fund. I would be curious is it a percentage of income that they want you to have, or a month's worth of expenses. If it costs you to run your program, if it costs $20,000 a month to run it, do they want you to have set aside 1 month's worth of money? I'd be curious to know more about. Wisconsin does not require that. I think it's a great idea. I'm sure all of you think it's a great idea. I know even me personally, I like to have a little bit of money set aside for when the dishwasher breaks, so I don't have to put it on the credit card. So I think it's a great idea, but it's not required in Wisconsin. And again, I would be curious to know, are they requiring a percentage of income or so many months worth of operating expenses.
Looks like it's not a percentage, just something that's allocated for those extra breakages.
So yeah, you certainly could add a line item for emergencies and just start tucking money away each month, you know, set aside $100 each month or $1,000 or whatever makes sense for your program. It's a good idea. Okay, nothing else with record keeping? Then this group is easy. Then I'm going to move on to budget review. For me, this is my favorite part, to review the budget. Not necessarily create it. I'm not a numbers person. Numbers don't excite me. I like playing in the sandbox much more, or reading a book to kids than doing numbers, but they're necessary, so I get it. But here's the fun part. So you can read all of this. You don't need me to read to you. But for the budget review, in the end, it's looking at, so what's the difference? On that last sheet, you were tracking your monthly expenses and your monthly income. So now this asks you, well, let's look at what's the difference. So you had a budgeted amount, let's say $85,000, and in the end, you had $82,000 come in. So the difference there is $3,000. So why? Why the difference? You know, what was interesting about it? I did it once with my group center. I tracked construction paper because the teachers were always coming and asking me for more white construction paper. It got to the point where we really stopped buying colored construction paper and mostly only purchased white. But I noticed they were using an awful lot of it, so I paid attention. I walked around. I looked and see what's going on in the classrooms with all this white construction paper. And I found that they were just using it as, that was the only paper they ever used with the children for everything. And so I did have a conversation with them because I looked at the price. Again, it helps make decisions. I looked at the price of construction paper versus, say, the price of either just regular copy paper, because sometimes just copy paper, just that white copy paper, is fine for what they're doing. Or I used that newspaper print, which it was much cheaper. And so we had a conversation with my staff about it, and after that, they didn't cut down on the amount of paper in general, but they did cut down on the amount of construction paper, which really made a big difference. This was, we were licensed for 120 kids, so it made a difference in our budget when we're spending that kind of money on construction paper that often ended up in the garbage. So the nice thing about this is to look at, where am I spending? Where was the spending higher than I thought? Where was it lower than I thought? And same with income. What Youngstar is asking you to do is just not only fill this document out, but really just look at the whys to determine, why did that happen? Why was I off on the field trip costs, or why was I off on the travel expenses? And then what are you going to do differently next year on the next budget? You know, if this was $6,000 less than you anticipated, what will you create for the next budget? Will you decide $6,000 less, or will you stick with what you thought this year because you're really going to try hard to get full? I don't know. I mean, those are questions and decisions to think about and talk about with people. So this sheet is also available for download. Just want to check. Yep, there it is. I have this one has the directions down here, and then over here is the actual one that you can save to your computer and fill out. And you can save it and fill it out and type it in. These are all typable squares. Or you can print it and then just, handwrite it in. Either way. If you handwrite it in, it obviously isn't going to automatically calculate for you. If you do it on your computer, it will automatically calculate. And then once again, I have questions for you to consider, and then what Youngstar is requiring as far as budget review goes. They do want to see that you review it and then make decisions based on it. That's what they're asking for. So, it'll wake you up out there and ask you, raise your hand if, for those of you who do a budget, the 52% of you, how many of you review your budget every year? You sit down and really look at the numbers and compare them.
Let's see. There's a sprinkling of hands raised. Oh, there's more. I'm going to say, if everybody's done, about a quarter of there's 26 people attending today, so.
Okay. And half of them do a budget and a quarter of them review it, roughly. So it is, again, it's something Youngstar wants you to do, but you know, set aside what Youngstar wants just for a minute, easy for me to say, and just think about for yourself, wouldn't it be a valuable use of your time, if you can find the time, if you can carve it out of your day, to really sit down and look at the numbers and what story are they telling, because they are telling a story about your program. And back to the beginning when I said, you know, if you want to purchase something new and you're just told, you know, we can't afford it, or you just make an assumption, we can't afford to buy that, we can't afford to recreate our whole playground into a natural play space as much as you want to, you think you can't afford it. But how do you know you can't afford it until you really sit down and look at the numbers to decide, can we afford it? And then, you know, I always think you can afford what's your priority. So what are your priorities this year? If as a staff you all get together and you say, you know what, we really do want to, you know, build a hill on our playground so the kids can sled down it. If that's really a priority, then where might we be able to cut some spending? You know, look at your line items again, and where are we wasting some money potentially? I'm thinking every program wastes money somewhere, just especially if you're not tracking it, then you don't know where it's going. So where could we, you know, I get that fundraisers are a great way to get new stuff, but I also think looking at your numbers and, you know, where can you move some money around to spend a little less here or a little more there based on your, you know, your goals for your program and what it is you guys as a staff want to do next. So reviewing the budget is really, you know, it's an eye-opener. It's kind of fun, actually. And I know you're thinking, well, time, Angel, I don't have time for that. So I just want to talk just briefly, because I have the time, to share what I always did. I bring it up in my classes when I teach them. I always have directors say, it's not going to work. And then I always tell them, just try it. And I'm surprised, or they're surprised, how many say that worked. So what I did, honestly, I sat down with my staff and I had a conversation with them. You all recognize times when staff, teachers, do not want you in their classrooms, right? They say, don't come in my classroom. I'm busy doing this. Can you not come in at this time because the kids are doing this? So they have times during the day where they do not want you to come into the classroom and, you know, interrupt them. So you honor that. Well, have a conversation with your staff about you also have times during the day when you don't want to be interrupted. Just like they have things they need to get done with the children, you have big things that need to get done in an uninterrupted way. And budget review is one of those times where you really need to be uninterrupted. So what I did when I talked with my staff about this, they all agreed, and then we came up with a time where we thought I would be the least needed. So for us, obviously, you could probably guess, was nap time. So for an hour and a half every day, it was roughly 1:30 to 3 o'clock, I shut my door. I really shut it, and I put a sign on it, and they knew, unless it's an emergency, don't interrupt me. I'm doing some really intensive work here. That's what my job is. And mostly they honored that. Now, I did have to have a little conversation with a few staff members of what constitutes an emergency. Because, you know, some of us don't understand, I need to go to the bathroom, it's not an emergency, or maybe it is, but they learn to help each other out. They learn that, you know, that's just a time Angel's not available. So if they needed to talk to me, they just knew I can't do it during this time. And they really did learn to honor it. And I can tell you, I got so much work done in that hour and a half with my door shut that then when the door was open, I welcomed interruptions, you know, because I knew I was going to get this hour and a half of uninterrupted time to really do the kind of work like review the budget or, you know, deal with the piles of papers. So I would encourage you to try that. Talk with your staff, find a time, even if you can't do an hour and a half, can you do an hour, can you do 45 minutes? If you can't do every day, can you do 3 times a week? And it's, I mean, you're not leaving the center, you're there. You just need a little uninterrupted time. So I would encourage you to do that. I'm guessing many of you probably do that currently either at night or you go back on Saturday when nobody's around. But you need to honor your own time as well, your personal time, and not spend every Saturday for 2 hours in the building because you can be there alone. All right, end of lecture. My last one here is, or second from last, is accurate taxes. Now this one is probably the most difficult one to deal with from my end, because although I can tell you that the Young Star, people want to see your taxes, and it's important that you complete taxes in the appropriate way. I am not a tax accountant. I don't do taxes. So so this part is a little challenging for me. What I put on the website are copies or, you know, what it is they want to see. So they'll want to see a quarterly payroll tax document. And I just put this one on here from 2011 just so you can see what it looks like. It's this one that they want to see. Once again, I don't have tabs open there, so I got to go back. So I put on here the federal tax forms they want to see and the state payroll tax form. So if you're just not sure what the tax form looks like, that's why I put them on here. These are not usable forms for you because the years are wrong, first of all. And you fill your own out. I'm guessing because of you're a center, most of you probably hire somebody to do your taxes. In most cases, is that true? Can you just raise your hand if you do hire somebody else to do your taxes?
Lots of hands.
Yeah, I would guess that. It gets complicated, right? Again, we're in this field because we like to hang out with kids. And we like to feel like we're making a difference in the lives of children, not that we can crunch a bunch of numbers. So that makes sense to me that most of you do that. But I will say, and I know for those of you who know Dave Linsmeyer, he talks a lot about finance in early childhood as well. He too says that although you may not do your taxes and you may hire somebody who does all of your financial stuff, you still want to look at it. You still want to know. We've all heard horror stories when, you know, the accountant or the finance guy or girl is, you know, skimming money from a business, and it's because the person who owns the business never looks at the numbers. So it's important for you to look at the numbers and ask questions about, you know, this or that if you're not the one who actually touches or actually creates the budgets and the documents, so that you understand what's going on. Because how do you make decisions if somebody else is the one, you know, handling all the finance and you have no idea? So it's important that you look at them at least and try to understand them and ask questions. Once again, I have, you know, questions to consider down here, and then what Young Star requires as it relates to taxes. And then the last tab on here is the frequently asked questions and resources. And there's a whole bunch of questions here that, you know, we anticipated or that we have been asked in the past about the business, the financial part of business practices. So I have lots of links here. I have other documents. There's more articles here's 2 more articles that I thought were good articles. Here's a book you could purchase. Lots of different links on how you get other kind of help on here. So this is frequently asked questions and some resources tab. on here. So, wow, we're done early, Andrea.
Mm-hmm.
I must have talked faster. So I have two questions, and I probably should only ask one at a time. So the first one is, do you have any questions for me?
Nothing so far.
Okay. My second question is really, it has to do with like, so how are you feeling? Are you thinking this is something you will use? Are you thinking this will be helpful? Or do you have suggestions on, I wish it would have been this, or can you create that for us? That kind of thing. Just any feedback you have about the tutorial. You will have access to this. Andrea's going to tell you how to find this. And you'll be able to upload all these documents to your computer and use them as you want. All the documents I created do meet the Young Star requirements. So if you're curious about that, if you use them, but tweak them the way you want. They aren't the ones, please don't think that they're the ones you have to use, because you don't have to use them. You have to have a line item budget. It doesn't have to look like ours. So how are you feeling, or what are you thinking? Yeah?
We do have a couple hands raised, so okay. I'm going to try. So Janet, I'm going to unmute you, if that's okay. I see your hand is raised, and we'll try this again. So you should be unmuted, Janet, if you want to ask your question. This hasn't worked either time, has it?
Hi, Janet, are you there?
Okay. Let's see. There's just a couple comments, very helpful, so thank you. And this is great. I'll use it for sure. Someone says it's helpful for me as I don't have control over all changes, but now I can have input into the financial record.
Right. And now hopefully you just, you know what questions to ask.
Mm-hmm. Somebody says the information is helpful. I do budgets for other people. Is that what that means? It helped me understand if I was going in the correct direction when doing budget. So.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Well, Sandra loves the computation sheets. We do hear a lot that people really like the spreadsheets. So.
The spreadsheets, yeah. I do too. When I learned it, I was like, oh, wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well.
Okay, so I know that, the director, administrator, manager, whatever your title is, that role is just so challenging and so hard. I have been there. So I'm hoping, I created this really because my mission in life is to do anything I can do to make your jobs easier. I know how hard it is, and I know that there are tools that are available out there that do help make it easier. So hopefully you find that this is something that will make your job a little easier as it relates to budgeting and dollars and money coming in and money going out. So really it comes from a place of just I so want to help you guys make your job just a little bit easier. So good luck with that.
Angel, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to take the controls back from you. It always sounds so funny. Let me make sure I'm showing you the right thing here. All right. So I do want to just tell you about an opportunity that we have thanks to, oh sorry, Angel, I'm going to mute you.
Okay.
An opportunity we have thanks to Young Star, essentially, to Department of Children and Families. And that's an opportunity to provide some additional one-on-one technical consultation for people. I realize that if you are participating in Youngstar, you already have a technical consultant. This would be somebody from our business practices team to do some specific, targeted, intensive financial support for you. And so there's an application that you would fill out in order to do this, and I have already posted it on our website, and I'll show you where in just a moment. This is something that we'll be taking applications for. You can apply. The audience for it is primarily intended to be for 2- or 3-star programs that are participating in Youngstar. So if you have any questions about that, either right now or down the road, don't hesitate to email me. I also want to show you where to go to access this tutorial. And so you can find it on our website, which is wisconsinearlychildhood.org. There, I got to change my screens. So here we are on the WECA website. There is a training tab up at the top. Over on the right is where you would enter your email address to access the specific page that has all of our webinars archived on it and any links. To access the tutorial, you just need to scroll down to this blue box. You click on the Register Now. It's going to ask you to enter your name and your email address and your county. That's for our funders. And then you will click Register, and it will then send you a confirmation email that will give you a link directly to the Business Practices website. What I have done is bookmarked mine, so it's always on my toolbar so that I can always access it. So I would suggest that you do that.